Beyond Dreaming, a guide to awakening consciousness through the path of astral projection and out-of-body experiences by Hart. Part 18. A Priestess's Teaching on the Ego, January 23, 2021. I begin in a dream. I am in my uncle's house. It's nighttime, and we're getting ready for bed. My uncle is setting up a bed for me in his conservatory, to which there is a beautiful open field with moonlight across its expanse. I mention how the energy here is perfect for astral projection. He asks me about the subject and we discuss it for a couple of minutes. After, I go to bed and fall asleep within the dream peacefully. Next, I find myself walking across the field near where I just went to sleep and realize that it's a dream. I had been reading about shape-shifting in a book on shamanism by Marilyn Townshend recently, and I attempted one of her methods for it. I decided to turn into a Black Panther. I went on all four limbs and walked in the form of a large cat for a few minutes. Afterwards, I decided to go beyond the dream and enter the astral. I counted down slowly from 5 to 1, with the intention of carefully moving my awareness back to my physical body and then coming out of it again. As expected, I felt myself become aware of my physical body. However, the transition from the dream to the physical was slow enough that I easily avoided moving or fully occupying any part of my physical body. Instead, I immediately floated upwards out of my body and flew directly out on the street in front of my apartment. It was the morning time, and since I was living in London city centre at the time, I saw and felt the hustle and bustle of morning city life. It was busy with cars and people. This made me feel a bit unbalanced, and so I sat on the pavement floor cross-legged and meditated and focused on some breathing. I kept my eyes open so that I stayed grounded in this astral counterpart of the physical. As I meditated, my awareness amplified tenfold. I noticed the detail of the pavement, the blue sky and early morning rays, and the beautiful rustling of the lush trees on the road, which were so prominent in London. I got a few strange looks from strangers. I couldn't tell whether the people I looked at were in the physical or astral. I analyzed the cream-colored cement pavement floor and the black iron fences which were next to me. I felt hyper-realism come over me. I touched the cold, roughly black-painted fence bars. They felt as physical as they were in waking life, if not more. I walked on the street for a bit after this. Then I looked over at a familiar church near where I lived. It looked the same as it did in the physical. However, opposite this church, there is usually a roundabout which has a park in the middle of it. But in this astral counterpart of the location, instead of an empty park, I saw a huge temple, cleaner and more majestic than the usual physical church across the road. I made my way over. I walked up about 15 steps to this huge wooden doorway. I opened it slightly and peeked inside. I was surprised to see around 100 people attending what I thought was a religious mass. Intrigued, I quietly walked in and sat down on the back row. Everyone sat quietly, listening. To my surprise, I was delighted to see a woman, a priestess giving a sermon. On the platform, it was just her, sitting casually on the humble chair behind a standard table. I soon realized that this was far from a traditional religious mass that we usually see in churches in the physical, but a class or a teaching from a wise astral helper, and actually I recognized her as a spiritual master according to what my Gnosis teacher had taught me about them. That spiritual masters in the astral plane can be identified by the color of the robes many of them wear, white and silver. This is what the priestess was wearing. She looked at me smiling while she talked. I smiled back. I thought she was quite generous for doing this, considering the number of people here attending. But during this eye contact, I soon realized she was multitasking. She was telepathically communicating to me while also answering questions from people at the same time. This must take some real skill. She said to me, "I recognize you. Enjoy the experience. But you don't have to stay. This is for the public. These are basic teachings. I acknowledged this telepathic communication, and I continued to stay anyway, fascinated by the whole situation. I looked at all the people, and I got a strong intuition that most here were unconsciously projecting out of their bodies. Almost everyone seemed overly excited and fascinated, but not in a controlled way, affirming my perception that they were not fully aware, in the total sense of the word. One person asked a question relating to God. To answer it, the priestess directed everyone to turn to the Quran and the Bible and discuss it. What a beautiful event to witness, people studying texts from different traditions, compared to usual meetings in churches. After the priestess finished explaining a verse in the Quran, she asked everyone to get out their handmade mask, which she had previously asked them to make. I looked around in wonder at everyone's tattered handcrafted wooden masks.